and gentlemen, I would like to speak about the current issues of the economic and monetary union. That is to say, about the half-built house, as it was called earlier by Fred Bergsten. The structure of my presentation will be the following. I will give a brief on the history of the creation of the monetary union, then on the creation of the banking union based on the consequences of the crisis in 2010, and then I will elaborate on the crisis management strategies of the European Central Bank and their conformity with the principle of conferral. So first, the Eurozone is still far from being an optimum currency area, as it was portrayed by Mundell and Balassa. Balassa was an economist with a Hungarian origin. And as others stated, the Eurozone not only lacked the conditions to become optimum currency area, but the political will to become one. And because of this political dissent, the founding fathers of the monetary union gave up the creation of a real economic and monetary union and created an asymmetric monetary union instead, and dispensed with creating a proper system of supervision as well. And this proved to be a great problem on the long run. However, the founding fathers decided to secure the independence of the European Central Bank to an extent that one may regard the European Central Bank as being a sui generis entity outside the institutional framework of the monetary union. And the answer to this question was given by the Court of Justice of the European Union in the Commission versus European Central Bank case, and also some issues were settled in the Lisbon Treaty, and they clarified that the European Central Bank belongs to the institutional framework of the European Union. So, as a result of this chosen path, as Fred Bergsten said, the economic and monetary union was a half-built house. And it was also very interesting that, contrary to what the founding fathers expected, the monetary union led to divergence instead of the expected convergence. And that's why certain member states, for example, Hungary, decided to stay out of the Eurozone as far as we reach a certain level of development, which allows us to join to the Eurozone. Also, the lack of common fiscal policy created the so-called moral hazard, free rider, or in other words, the free rider problem. And this expression I really like is the beggar-thy-neighbor policies. It means that you can make irresponsible fiscal policies and then ask for bailing out from the member states, as it happened, for example, in the case of the Greek sovereign debt crisis. In order to avoid these scenarios, they adopted the Stability and Growth Pact, but this proved to be insufficient on its own, just like as Professor Boinch elaborated on. The Maastricht criteria are also outdated and not suitable to achieve the goal. They also put the so-called no bailout clause to the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union and prohibited the monetary financing also in the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union. And unlike other central banks, they decided that the European Central Bank shall not act as a lender of last resort. However, as some argue, it became on the long run through its crisis management programs. And now I would like to talk about how the current banking supervision system was created. The previous banking supervision framework failed because the domestic authorities were prone to turn a blind eye on the so-called national champions and did not resolute these financial institutions, even when it was clear that they are beyond repair and they should have been winded up. However, in the times of the crisis, as some argue, the supranationalism has gained momentum, And as Van Rompuy said, what happened in the next years was extraordinary and unthinkable even a few times earlier. However, the Germans, who were the leading force of the integration this time, was against certain supranational elements because they was afraid of the so-called moral hazard and so on, so they exerted reluctance towards the banking union. However, at this time, they had to allow to create these supervisory mechanisms. And the supervisory mechanism and the banking union is based first on the single rulebook, which consists of several documents, both directly applicable, just like the capital requirements regulation, and indirectly applicable instruments. And this kind of regulational framework, which combines different layers of legislation, allows flexibility. However, flexibility could lead to divergence between the member states' regulations as well. They also created the single supervisory mechanism, and as my colleague Professor Skorlec elaborated on, it distinguishes on the financial institutions based on their significance, as it is set out in the SSM regulation. And while if we look at the early years of the functioning of this system, it showed a somewhat mixed picture. For example, the European Court of Auditors was quite critical with this system, but to this date, it became, in the Commission's word, a mature organization that is functioning well, and it was generally praised, including by industry stakeholders, for its swift and agile approach to addressing the challenges posed by the COVID-19 crisis. They also created the single resolution mechanism. It covered the same scope as the SSM mechanism. And unlike in the case of the single supervisory mechanism, certain shortcomings and legal uncertainties in the functioning of this system is visible. And to prove that, I selected two recent judgments of the Court of Justice of the European Union. In the first case, it was about the delegation of powers and how it is displayed in the SRM mechanism, and how is it confirmed with the principles set out in the Meroni versus High Authority case and the judgment of the United Kingdom versus Parliament and Council cases. Because while the transfer of competencies to EU institutions are set in the founding treaties, transferring competencies to agencies are not elaborated on in the founding treaties. And the plaintiffs of the original case before the national courts argued that the SRB basically have autonomous power to decide on the resolution of an entity. They argued that because the Commission has only 24 hours to approve the SRB's decision, it is basically the SRB which will decide on the resolution of an entity. However, the tribunal said in its judgment that because the Commission can send participants to the meetings of the SRB, and the Commission is aware of this decision earlier before it is submitted, this decision is submitted to the Commission, it means that the SRB does not have autonomous power to decide on the resolution of an entity. The Commission can know in advance about this decision, and also the Commission has the discretionary power to reject such a proposal from the single resolution board. And of course, also the Council has a say in this decision. In the other case, it was also about the legal nature of the single resolution board's decision. The Commission argued that because the proposal of the single resolution board is incorporated into the decision of the Commission, one may not launch a procedure to annul the decision of the single resolution board alone. However, the tribunal came to a different conclusion and said that the resolution scheme adopted by the Single Resolution Board, by its very nature, may be challenged without requiring the launching of a procedure against the Commission's decision endorsing it. And the last element will be the European Deposit Insurance Scheme. Content is still loading because it is still not adopted. The Commission proposed it in 2015 and also in 2017, but negotiation stands still because the German reluctance. Germans again say that German taxpayers shouldn't pay for the debt of other taxpayers. However, this year something happened because it's also on the agenda again. For example, the European Central Bank issued an opinion on this insurance scheme and was very supportive of this scheme. And third, I would like to talk about the crisis management strategies of the European Central Bank and their conformity with the principle of conferral, because several times the European Central Bank, in order to save the Eurozone, acted outside of its competencies. And for example, what Professor Skrolec told about the digital euro maybe will be also an interesting issue of the constitutional identity. First, I would like to talk about the judgments of the Court of Justice of the European Union. It always displayed a so-called amicable attitude towards the acts of the European Central Bank and any crisis management programs. To put it more bluntly, some said that in every case, the opinion of the Court of Justice is known in advance when it comes to the European Central Bank and its crisis management strategies. As you can see, in all these cases, the Court of Justice said that they were totally in compliance with the EU law. Also, the national constitutional courts displayed this amicable attitude at the first occasions. You can see that the Austrian Constitutional Court, the French Constitutional Court, and also the German Constitutional Court said that these treaties and other measures are in compliance with their constitutional requirements. However, the first warning was given by the German Constitutional Court when it said in the current state of the banking union there is still sufficient level of legitimacy feedback. However, it warned that maybe next time it can change its opinion. And finally, the German Constitutional Court crossed the so-called red line with its PSPP decision when it said that the European Central Bank acted ultra vires and in violation of Germany's constitutional identity, since the PSPP judgment and the PSPP program and the judgment of the Court of Justice on this program allowed the European Central Bank to pursue its own economic policy, which is contrary to the founding treaties. And I borrowed this term and developed further. Fabbrico Fabrini said that the Bundesverfassungsgericht needed to be saved from itself, and that's what happened in the next year. German government was very angry because of this decision, because it was in the eve of the COVID pandemic, and they said that if the German Federal Bank has to quit this cooperation, it will have really serious consequences. So some political arrangements were made. They told the German Constitutional Court that the government and also the German parliament had the opportunity to see some otherwise secret documents, and these documents were okay. And what happened the next year? Some German citizens launched a procedure to make this decision in force, because under the German law on the Constitutional Court, the German Constitutional Court can order the government to execute its decision. And what did the German Constitutional Court said? Well, there are some formal problems with these submissions, and otherwise I was persuaded that it is okay. So I will dismiss these procedures, and I will not order the government to execute my former decision 1 year earlier. And last but not least, some more recent developments. For example, in case of the COVID, Lagarde said that extraordinary times require extraordinary actions, and there are no limits to our commitment to the euro. It was very similar to what Draghi said, whatever it takes. So they launched the Pandemic Emergency Purchase Program, and the initial amount was increased significantly, and also they used the collateral easing programs. What brought changes in the practice of the European Central Bank was the Russian-Ukrainian war. And as Lagarde said, we are in a state of perma-crisis. And in the first time ever, in July 2022, it increased the fixed interest rate. And as of September, it was also increased and reached 4.5 at this time. And the other tool of fighting the inflation is the phasing out of the net purchase programs for the European Central Bank. As to briefly conclude my presentation, at the beginning, Eurozone was a so-called half-built house with asymmetric nature and the lack of proper supervisory system. And in my view, up to this date, it became an almost completed house. It is still asymmetric, and maybe it will remain that way, but it features a proper supervision system, except for the insurance scheme. It withstood the legal debates and was able to tackle the challenges of the COVID-19 disease. And thank you for your kind attention.